do a reading.
Ladies and gentlemen, the front doors are locked, and the back doors are here.
On this work,
All the way open.
the intro out of the blue.
Older too, what, 40 years?
Back doors are open.
Patch on the wall. Just
Back doors are open for anything.
Gentlemen, is it fair to say that you are the greatest export from this area? That you are bigger than Mr. Peanut, HBO, or MCI?
Oh, maybe. I don't want to belittle anybody. I don't want to belittle us either.
Right. In all deference to the Bill Kellys and Jerry Lidzicks of the world who've carried the name of Wilkes-Barre around the globe, we probably weren't the greatest export, but we were a pretty damn good second.
Yeah.
True?
Yeah.
We have quite a crowd of folks here who are witnessing this because they want to try to protect the innocent, which is nobody in this room.
Gentlemen, tell us one of the greatest things from being on the road. Tell us about a time when everything just worked. And I'd like to hear from all of you on this. When you were out on the road and something, a night, everything just clicked.
First Canadian tour, Chris Conrad knew the agent for Cyndi Lauper.
Cindy Lauper, yeah.
And he talked to her.
Right.
And Cyndi Lauper talked to the agent.
Right.
And Cyndi Lauper got her agent in touch with us, Larry Hart in Canada, in Toronto. And Larry Hart brought us up to Toronto for our very first tour, which was about 6 or 7 weeks long, 6 nights a week. It was a smash hit, really went good. The Canadians went wild. We played there so often after that tour, the Canadian people thought we were Canadian.
So Jim Hakim had really researched the Jim Morrison character and really to the point of was Lizard King.
Obsession.
And so Jim had Lizard, iguana, that we took to the border at Canada. Today, we wouldn't have been let into the country, but at that point in time, we show up at sunrise with this band and a lizard, and the people at the border are like, we don't know what to do with this. You remember the young guy came out to the car and he's looking, they finally shepherded us into Canada.
Customs agents.
Yeah, customs agents finally shepherded us
I
into
remember
Canada.
you and Prince, you and Bob Zivney were telling me they were real mad at me because I was, like kind of high.
because he was under the influence of a controlled substance,
They almost stopped
and
us.
his pet iguana was sitting in the back window of his Lincoln car, bobbing its head up and down. They never saw it. That's what, 3 to 5 years in Canadian jail? Yeah. They never even saw the iguana, which was 6.5 feet long, in the window with its head bobbing up and down like a dog. They thought it was a toy.
We were lucky.
True story.
We almost got our first tour canceled.
That was on the way in.
Yeah, we almost didn't make it.
Now, Jim, it's not just one lizard you traveled with, but 3, is that correct?
3, yeah, the 6.5 footer and a 4 footer and a 3 footer, and none of the guys in the band wanted to travel with them, so I ended up having to drive my Thunderbird and my 3 lizards, just us together, and let them loose. Never had them in a cage. So every time on the highway, people are going by on the highway and staring and pointing at us. And I lived with them in the motel rooms. I never kept them in cages or boxes. They were always loose. They were like my brothers.
So we check into, the brother over
My
here.
real brother is right there, Ron. He's
So
here
we
tonight.
check into a hotel room late one evening across the bridge from Detroit. We're in Canada. And Jim checks into the room and the electricity's not working in the room. And so Jim does what anybody does when the electricity's not working in your room. You call the front desk and they send someone to check it out. And it had a long, long hallway going up to this room in the corner. And I'm trying to get checked in, trying to get everybody in their rooms. And I come to Jim's room, and all of a sudden, this woman comes yelling, "Run over! He's got snakes! He's got snakes!" And she runs down this long, long hallway, and I have no idea what's happening. And I walk into this room that's like twilight dark, And there Jim has, he had a stick that, and a light on, that the lizards would be on.
Yeah,
And-
the branch, the big branch.
Yeah, the big
And
branch.
the heat
And
light.
so they run down the hallway, she runs down the hallway, and Jim comes out of the bathroom, he was in the bathroom, so there's nobody in the room. So when the woman comes in, and all of a sudden the phone rings. And, hello, this is the front desk. Do you have snakes in your room? And so that was one of the many challenges that we had of traveling on the road with a couple live iguanas.
Every morning, when maids would come and knock on the door to see if we needed house cleaning, as soon as I opened the door, they'd see the lizards and scream and take off. And those lizards were great. They never gave me a problem at all. I got along with them better than I got along with the band members sometimes.
Yeah. What people don't realize is that the iguanas, and Jim really did have a special relationship, but I do remember that he would give them baths and he would get out the Mr. Bubble or whatever and the soap suds and he'd be washing them down. And one time we were cleaning the iguana, probably up there in Scarborough, Ontario, and out of the blue, this big iguana takes its tail and whips at us and it hits the wall. And I'd never seen so much power. And their tails had like thorns in them. I mean, and if you got hit in the eye, you'd lose your eye. And Jim jumped back and we were both scared. We looked at it and I couldn't believe it was the only time I ever seen the iguana get mad at Jim, but I thought, wow, now I knew how dangerous an iguana really was, but it could break your arm. So that's how powerful the iguanas were.
Yeah.
So the fact that Jim would take those guys on stage and they'd be looking around really slow, you know, and they'd be studying the lights and the music is like really loud, but yet they'd be just like an iguana in their own little reptile world. And I always wondered what was going through the little minds. You know?
Yeah.
They showed up on stage once a night, and the crowd would absolutely lose their minds. When
Yeah, they did.
The one was 6.5 feet long. It would put its head on my shoulder. I would have a trench coat when it was cold, and the tail would drag on my shoes. So I'll provide you a picture of the T-shirt that we had made with the Backdoors logo and the iguana.
Right, yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, once I walked in the room and I had a hat on, like some kind of Mexican hat, and a big 6.5 footer didn't recognize me, and jumped real fast and swung its tail and broke a wooden chair. It broke it and like broke the leg in half. And though I know when I bought that 6.5 foot lizard in Toronto, Canada,
Yeah.
the owner, well, the whole band went with me, and the owner told us that the person working at the store got a sprained back because the lizard swung his tail and sprained.
Worse than that.
Yeah, worse, hurt the back.
The lizard had broken the store owner's femur, which is the strongest bone in your body. The lizard was in the window. He was in a wheelchair to cast. He wanted $600 for the iguana. And then when he told us the story about his leg, I offered him $350 Canadian, which at the time was about $300. And we walked out with the largest iguana in captivity, which measured 6.5 feet. Jim carried it out after the guy told us that he didn't want to sell it.
Yeah.
And this was the most normal experience for a couple of guys from Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I'll tell you, that 6.5 foot lizard I still miss it to this day. I never had
Yeah.
one problem with it. We
its
went on-
name,
yeah.
its name was Iggy, named after Iggy Pop.
I used to go on stage. I trusted that lizard so much. I'd have him like on my, he'd have his claws in my trench coat on stage because I wore his trench because the claws were so big. He'd hang in my coat and I'd tilt my head back with my neck exposed. His head and jaws were right here next to my neck. The audience would jump back. I knew I could trust that lizard. Never once did he bite me. I'd take his tail, that great big, stiff, long steel-like tail, and I'd slam Swamp Doggy's cymbal with it and crash it. even in Wilkes-Barre, we'd do it there too. I'd grab his tail, swing it during the song, and whack the cymbal with it. Just crash the cymbal. That lizard would never get mad at me. We were close.
Well, Jim, your relationship with giant lizards also gave you a modeling career. How much did your modeling career impact the band?
That was before the band. That was in the 70s. So
Would you feel that that gave the band a jump start or some
Yeah.
notoriety, or did it help? Did it hurt?
it helped.
He's multi-talented. He was out in Hollywood looking to be in the movie business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I did a few things in California. It was too claustrophobic. It was too crowded out there. Just I couldn't take it anymore. Came back around 78 or 79 and had an idea for this Doors tribute band. And there's no such thing as a tribute band. No such name as a tribute band. Just I had an idea. I just had a vision for a couple of years. I knew the Doors were never seen enough or heard enough. They were only in existence for 4 years. So I was really obsessed with getting a band because I knew rock was coming back after disco was dying out around 79, 80. I had to get this done. And too many musicians said it couldn't be done. You can't play one band's music all night long. You had to play a variety. And I said, no, I'm going to make this happen. So I had to get the Doors. I had a similarity with Jim Morrison's voice and some of his personality, not all of it. I just wanted to get that band together and had to get the right sound. And I knew it could happen even though so many people said it could not happen. So we got the right guys together. Finally, after about a year and a half, Bob Welsh and I got together around 1979, late 79, got the right guys, did it, and it happened.
I just have to give a shout out to the guys that were the road crew and the sound crew.
Yeah.
They were the guys that delivered that product, that sound that we were trying to create, and they were really integral. Too many people to name, but
Marty Wentz, Tim Conrad.
Then
some
there's,
of the early
and
bands.
then there's Earth Pig, Mellow Hog, and Clam Dip.
Oh, yeah,
Doug
yeah.
Cohn.
everybody had a nickname in the band. We won't go down that
Right.
road now.
But we have to remember Jim, and
No, we're too proud for that.
way back in 1973 when Jim would do a little solo act, there's a place called the Puppet Lounge.
Yeah.
And he would do little experiments. He was doing early Dylan stuff on the first couple of Dylan albums. And he would
Bob Dylan.
do Doors songs, and people would say, wow, like, there's something when you do a Doors song, you have an aura or a vibe that kicks into the audience. So Jim stored that in his subconscious, and it was in the back of his head. So I was the last guy to join the band in the autumn of 1980, and I just remember thinking, you know, how could a band that has songs like, you know, End of the Night, you know, End of the Night, and these ultimately,
That was the first Doors song, wasn't it?
yeah, probably one of the first.
And Zarek
Yeah,
met Jim on the beach.
yeah,
and,
65, yeah. So Jim has this group, and I'm thinking, how could people like go out to even see this? And at the last moment, I really start thinking, wow, Jim's really, he's gone too far, this is crazy. You know, you're not even thinking the fact the Doors had like a dozen hits, but you're just thinking how, because the Doors always did scare me as a kid, you know, and I'd see the effect their music had on people psychologically. They really appealed to a wide range of people, from people that were really intelligent to people that their whole life was a can of beer, you know, so many different, you know, poetic people. The people didn't seem to be, you know, they fell off the dum-dum tree, but it just seemed like they had a wide range of people in that audience. So Jim's like pulling this thing together, and finally I thought, you know what? I just got to hang in there. These guys already put all the time. Everybody, Mark and the two Bobs, two Roberts here, Dr. Robert, bring my friend called Dr. Robert. So, you know,
So I
it's
have
incredible.
to tell a Bob Welsh story.
Oh, no.
So we go out on the West Coast tour, and we played on the California-Arizona border.
Yeah. Lake Havasu, all over.
Yeah, yep. And so we got done playing, and we, of course, the one thing about musicians is you get done playing at the end of the night and you like to have a beer, and all the bars closed because you closed the bar. But right over the border in California was an hour behind, so we could go over there. But all the people in the club told us, all the state police wait for people right at the border, don't go there. And so Bob comes up and says, I met someone who said they're having a party at their house, and we're invited. And so we, you'll remember this one when the punchline comes, but we go to this party, and we walk in, And immediately in front of us are all of these late 60s Altamont Hells Angels. And the gal that invited us to the party said, Mom and Dad, these guys played in the club tonight. I told them I'd invite them to the party. And everybody does this. And she goes, yeah, they played all doors. And the dad says, doors? Jim Morrison and I were buddies. Mama, come on. Put a beer in your hand. And you're sitting there going, this is going to be a great story today if I survive the night. And so that's the first time I'm telling that story, Todd.
Oh, here's a Mark story.
Oh!
So, we were in Sandusky, Ohio, and it's in the afternoon, and Mark and I are out on this dock going over, like, looking at this lake, and there's all these boats parked around there. And there was a radio station, we were being interviewed. And during the interview, this man and his wife and their kids are walking up the dock, I guess to get to a boat or something. And somebody, I think the woman asked Mark what was going on here, because they saw the cameras and stuff. And Mark told these people that we were on the dock the night before, and we blew up a bunch of these boats. And these people at the news station wants to know why we did it. And those people just turned around real quick and got off the dock.
We needed to keep it interesting, and we did.
Yeah.
We did.
In Washington, D.C., when we were booked into the Wax Museum, 1983, Jim's notoriety finally caught up with him, because at the time the Morrison family was considering doing a movie. Mm-hmm. So they came to meet us at the Wax Museum, which is like the most famous indoor venue. It's been there for like 150 years. And we at that time had just purchased the Lava Light Show, which was the only one in existence that we purchased from the original Hair movie. The guy that operated it was there, put it on stage and operated that for us. We ended up purchasing it. We also had dry ice machines. We had full lighting. It was the pinnacle of our appearances. And who shows up with Ann Morrison and Alan Graham, Jim Morrison's sister. And at the end of the performance, I remember meeting them in the dressing room. Ann was in tears. Alan said, you got to come out to LA and do a screening for the part. The next day, Ann and Jim went to WAOR radio station and did a full 1 hour interview with Ann. It was by far, that was the pinnacle, the peak of the Backdoors original members experience. And Bob Welsh has a video somewhere, DVD of that performance, as well as the original members caught on video, which included Chris on guitar.
There was a multimedia show that went with this. There was video, tape that we would project, and Jim would usually end the night with the end. And of course, we have this, advanced video at the time of tape showing nuclear explosions at the end of the thing, appropriately timed.
Yeah.
And it was just a big experience. It wasn't the only thing that was Jim being on out front like Morrison was, where everybody was looking for something to crash, right? That was a big appeal of the Doors. You never knew what was going to happen with Jim Morrison, and we kind of set the stage for that. And the one thing about all these guys is they knew what we were trying to support was there was a great singer out front who was doing theater. And some nights we would we'd go off script.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were playing somewhere down in Allentown.
Jimmy's Run.
We were playing there, and we were getting to a very theatrical moment in the show, and somebody said, "Last call for alcohol," and speakers right in my ear. I'm getting ready to go into the keyboard solo for Light My Fire or something. And I'm like, and we try to get back into it, try to ease back into it. And last call for it. And I turned around and I had an amplifier, a solid state amplifier with a reverb channel in it. And I took it up and I picked it up and I slammed it. You would know what that sound would be, right? I slammed this amplifier, and all the guys in the band go, "What's happening?" You know, I was just at that moment caught up in what was happening. And I took that, and I had a long speaker cable, and I took that head, and I started slamming it. I started slamming it in the stage. And the next thing is, I'm rolling around on the stage with this thing, people not knowing quite what was going on. These guys thinking I completely lost my mind. The crowd is going absolutely wild. Chris would do guitar solos and like do a spin around on the stage. And
Crazy alligator.
and you got done, and you got back up, and you finished the solo of Light My Fire. And, you know, guys are there going, "We're not sure what happened." The people in the audience are going, "We're not sure what happened, but we were sure damn glad we were here." You know, it was theater. It was, you could do, with that music behind you, you could do anything, right? And you did. You'd get up and you'd hang in the rafters.
Yeah.
And it was just such an awesome, powerful experience. But the music let us do that, and the quality of it just spoke for itself.
Somebody from
Mike,
Canada.
great. You know why?
Yeah.
My batteries are running out.
You
Somebody
ready?
has a car in